Record. Hey there, guys. Jason Wright from Essential Property Management. It's nice to catch up again. I'm here today with my colleague and friend Andrew Kyriacou from Xsell Property. How are you, mate?
Yeah, it's a Friday. I'm feeling good.
That's good. Hey, it's been a little while since we caught up. We caught up late last year, and I've sent a video to my owners about what it is you do. But since then, the media is telling us about all the market changes, and they're not necessarily as bad as the media makes out. So I thought I'd get you in so you could update our owners about the state of the market, and then you and I could talk a bit about how it is we and our teams work together. So
Yeah,
how's the market in Adelaide looking generally?
Yeah, look, I think you touched on something that's really important with what the media says, doom and gloom. Firstly, we all know the media loves to exaggerate, and also a lot of the things that we see with the media is to do with the eastern states. So what I can tell you with what's happening here in good old Adelaide, there is definitely still a lot of activity. Even from interstate buyers, I've seen a lot of that. And I think that's helping driving the market. So if you are looking at selling or just curious about that, doing that in the near future, there are some pockets that are still performing quite well, and you're getting the good numbers through. Sometimes 20 groups at an open inspection.
Yep. And look, I'm going to opens, like you said, on behalf of some interstate buyers, and I'm still seeing pockets such as Morfett Vale and parts of that Salisbury Council area around Paralowie, Parafield Gardens, where sometimes I'm seeing 40 buyers. But one of the variables I'm noting, and it's really important to point out the style of properties we manage on behalf of owners, is we've either got a big portion of that, what I like to call set and forget stuff, which is that relatively new build, 300 to 400 square meters, versus that older build on 600 meters, which I like to refer as land bank opportunities. Are you seeing a variation?
Yeah, definitely. It's funny because I see a lot of the interstate buyers looking at something that is more that set and forget type. And then a lot of, with those bigger blocks, developers that want to perhaps rent it out for a while. And they know they've got that option to develop in the future when building costs settle down and there's more, I guess, certainty in that respect. So it really is different types of buyers, and even first home buyers for those courtyard homes in those affordable price ranges.
Yep.
So they're competing with investors from interstate. So I'm seeing a bit of that.
So one of the things that when our clients think of us, Essential Property Management, what our point of difference has been for our 14 years is that we do not sell. As a result of that, quite often owners go and source their own sales agent, and they don't necessarily know that I've got such a strong working relationship with yourself and your company, Xsell Property, and the fact that we've worked together successfully for 2.5 years. Mate, I wanted to get this opportunity for them to recognize who you are, so that if they do think they're going to sell, because our brands, you and I connected immediately the very first time we met. And what was important was that brand alliance. You're an independent selling company. I'm an independent property management company. Ironically, our logos are very similar colors, etc.
I was going to say the purple power, right?
So how do you think that relationship has worked for us, and what are the benefits to the owners and the tenants during that transaction versus an owner selling with an independent selling agent rather than yourself?
Absolutely. I think the most important thing, Jason, and I would like for all the landlords to know this, is we have the same values. We're family businesses. It's people first. And I think with other agents or the big franchises, perhaps, their focus is on turnover. So it can, when you're doing business where the two parties don't have the same values, it can be frustrating. It won't be smooth. But because we share that same same values, we communicate, we look at what is the best interest for that particular landlord. That's the most important thing. So it's not about trying to get you out and speak to the next client. We'll spend that extra time required to study the situation. Hey, Jason, what about the Raksha? Let's look at the Raksha and Ronnie situation, where we looked at they got a property, it's rented out in Andrew's Farm, one of those set and forget type of investments. Now,
relatively good rent. Sorry to interrupt. Relatively good rent, but a little bit of room for improvement because he's a very long-term tenant, but he's a good tenant. He's not a great tenant. Like, it's clean and tidy, but it's not market immaculate. Sorry to interrupt, buddy.
And that's the thing. No, but that's great. You're painting the picture. But I'm not afraid to say, hey, I'm not here just to quickly list it and sell it quickly. Well, let's look at the situation. So we looked at the home and we realized that properties that were well presented for sale, that had nicely styled, that were painted, really attracted higher prices from those first home buyers. So in this case, we made a decision, a recommendation to let's get rid of the tenant and do those things to maximize the chance of getting a higher sale price. And we're doing that right now. This is a live example. Whereas there have been other ones where James Swarrow, where we worked well together, and we felt that no, for this type of property, let's find a buyer to with a tenant in there.
Yep.
Happy days. So it's not a one size fits all. It's a case by case, and I think that's why we work well together. And of course, because there's trust between us, it spreads to the client, which is what beautiful business is all about.
Yeah. And I think what's also really important is one of the frustrations that happens for my team or our property managers that work for us, and most of our owners are accustomed to dealing personally with Lisa, Steph, Mel, or Ali on a daily basis. The frustration for the girls is that when another selling agent comes in, they get a letter half of the time from the agent for the owner saying, I'm selling, can I pick up the keys? They don't correctly notify the tenant. They don't follow the legislation correctly. Then the next thing we do is I get a letter from the conveyancer saying, oh, that property settled last Friday. Can we pick up the keys? And you're like, well, hang on a second. We haven't correctly done a rental adjustment. No one's kept us informed, and it's a bit of a schmozzle. And then the tenant is feeling less than cared for. And so the tenant's going to a new owner with a bit of resentment. It's just a bit of a shambles that happens when it's not managed correctly. Do you see that sometimes with other?
All the time. I've been in the other side of the deal with what you're saying, and it's just not a nice feeling for the people involved. And if we use another case study as well, I always, when we are about to do business, I personally contact the tenant and I set up the process so they know what they're up for, and we work with them. We don't work against them, because if you start off on the wrong foot with a tenant, they're going to make life harder for us and ultimately could hinder the sale, perhaps. So there have been times where I've bought a bottle of my, from me, of course, my money, a bottle of Jack Daniels. Here you go, and it just you just got to do what you've got to do to develop that relationship sometimes.
Yeah, and look, I think again, using a live example, and Sam in Mawson Lakes is a great live example. He's a single dude, but he was all intents purposes. He pays great rent. He's a good tenant, but he's a boy, and it just needed some finessing. So we negotiated with him to have it partially styled around him, and then gave a small rent rebate for 2 weeks in exchange for his flexibility. And you got an amazing result at that property for the owner, the new purchaser, and we still manage it. And for the tenant, everyone's happy. What an amazing result.
Exactly. And most, well, I would say all of our case studies have I mean, not everything goes to plan. Like there are some factors that happen that aren't in our control. But I think the important thing is how we respond.
Yep.
And that's what it's all about. And that's what we can control. But so yeah, that case study there is a brilliant example where a single dude doesn't have much things. So you can partially solve that through negotiating with the tenant. That might not work for another house where there's a family full of clutter, you
Yep.
know, and we've got to make a decision. Well, is it best for them to stay there or not? Or how else can we work with them?
Yep. Yep. And again, I think it's just important to highlight that you've got a really great team and tons of support behind you, as do I. And the great thing here is the owners we're talking to today are people that already have a relationship with a property management manager in my team that they trust, and therefore they're communicating with you and I and the tenant throughout the entire process, so it's far better managed.
Oh, 100%. Good people is what makes the dream work, as they say.
Yep.
And having the people that have their defined roles frees up our time to do what we do best.
Yep. Now, if any of our owners want a no obligation sales appraisal from you, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you? Through their property manager?
Yeah, 100%. I'm happy for them to talk to whoever they're dealing with in your team. And then, like we always do, then they would then prep me up on the situation.
Yep.
And at that point, then I will contact the landlord and just have a chat. That's it.
Yep.
Just see how we can help.
And the other thing I like about us prepping and working together is quite often I can send you the last routine inspection and pour, and I can give you, if during COVID we happen to have done a virtual video tour. So you get to look at the property and have a rough idea the first time you talk to the owner before you've even been out to it. And you've said to me a million times that helps heaps.
It is the best thing since sliced bread, I have to say. So yeah, it certainly helps, and that way the advice that we give is just really as specific as it can be. So
Yep.
definitely helps.
Well, before I say goodbye to you today, is there anything else you think our owners should know?
I just think because of I think the most important thing is the values and trust, which I've already said. So you're definitely, if you feel, which you do feel, you're in good hands at the moment. I'm an extension of their arm. So
Yep.
you have nothing to worry about, and everything's in good hands with us.
Guys, I'm here with Andrew Kyriacou, who's a good mate and a really fantastic agent from Xsell Property. Thanks for joining me today, buddy.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jason. Bye for now.